And for instance, an overview of local planning requirements outlined in HB 697 states, housing element, the housing element of it shall consist of standards, plans, and principles to be followed in energy efficiency in the design and construction of new housing, the use of renewable energy resources. Under overview of required actions outlined in HB 7135, all county buildings shall be constructed to meet the LEED, Green Globes, FGBC, or other green building rating system. And then just to kind of add a little more to it, by 2010, each county shall develop and implement a plan to achieve a goal to compost and shall provide that up to 10% and no less than 5% of organic material would be composted. All of this adds so much cost and regulation. Even selling our homes, you know, it's getting more and more checklists, and I mean everything you go to do, a building permit, whatever. So will you fight to repeal burdensome EPA-based climate regulations that are crippling Florida today and create no more?
Are you familiar with Senate Bill 360? Mm-mm. Well, that's where we repealed a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. It got vetoed. We overrode the veto. We did repeal a lot of that stuff. It all sounded good. I'm an organic gardener. I believe in compost. It's the only way to keep organic material in the soil in Florida because of the heat and the rain. But you don't need to come tell me to do that. If I'm going to build a house, I'm an idiot if I don't follow the building code, because that's going to make it strong enough to withstand the storms. And if I don't put in energy efficiency, I'm shooting myself in the wallet. But if you really don't want insulated glass in your house, right, it's okay. You really shouldn't. You shouldn't have to have the government come and tell you that you have to have double insulated windows, and you don't have to have double insulated windows. So,
how about the wind rated? Is that still on the books?
The wind rating is still on the books, and that's just a structural, and that's because it's stuff you can't see, and we require it in the building code, because if we didn't, every single storm would blow roofs off. When Charlie came through...
Charlie Chris?
No. Yeah. That's a different hurricane. That was a different hurricane. Different hurricane. When Hurricane Charlie came through Punta Gorda, the only buildings that suffered damage were buildings that were built under the old building code. So people could get back into their houses right away. They could get back to a normal life. And that's what, if you're going to build in Florida, you ought to build something strong enough to withstand a hurricane. That's the bottom line, and I think that ought to be a requirement. You ought to have hurricane straps over the rafters. We've put them in our house. It's an old house, 1954, I think. We retrofitted it because I've seen what it'll do. I took the helicopter tour after Hurricane Andrew, and I thought about, you know, these look like baobab trees because they had no leaves on them. And I saw the damage that was done, and I saw what survived, and that's what we put in the building code, and it works. And people's lives have been changed positively for that. So that's a good step. But to say you have to do all these things that actually are optional, your lifestyle choice, no, we shouldn't do that. But you don't want your neighbor's roof coming through your side wall.
Next question. Medicaid personal care contracts. Do you support stiff reform of personal care contracts, which are being used as a loophole for Title 19 Medicaid eligibility for long-term care benefits? What do you know about Larry Ahern's bill and this issue, which is creating a huge cost for the state?
I have not read Larry's bill. The Medicaid reform that we did this last session that put everybody into managed care.
It's a different subject.
A different subject, I presume. Are you talking about APD?
I'm talking about Larry actually had this bill presented last year, and it did make it out of committee.
I don't think we ever heard that in healthcare appropriations, so I don't recall the bill, but I'll ask him about it.
Okay, well this is, because it is important, I think, that you get this on your radar screen, which is all of the attorneys that are helping people to hide assets so that they
okay, that issue, yes,
oh, yeah,
absolutely.
That's it.
Okay, now I got it. Now I got it.
Did anybody want me to finish what I was saying? People
hide their assets. They transfer them to their children or to some other trust so that they can then qualify for Medicaid.
For long-term care, for nursing homes.
And go into a nursing home, and they don't spend any of their resources. That ain't going to work. We've got to change that. And Larry's bill, if we can get it through this year, will go a long way toward doing that. We were pretty focused on the overall Medicaid reform this last year, and that was really the focus that we had there.
He's bringing this bill forward again this year.
Okay. That will be good. That's a good bill. Right. That's a very good bill.
Do you support a ban on third trimester abortion?
I would like to ban all abortions.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Where do you get your news?
Where do I get my news? Oh, well, I get up in the morning and I look forward to my morning coffee in the St. Petersburg Times. Because I'm a little, I don't have high blood pressure. I actually sometimes have very low blood pressure. And when my wife thinks I'm not moving fast enough, she shoves the editorial page under my nose and says, "Read this!" And all of a sudden I'm like, now I get most of my news off either the internet or I watch Fox News.
That's what we're after.
Oh, okay. That was easy. I watch Fox News. I do a lot of my own research. Lately, I've been so inundated with reading material that has been emailed to me from our staffs in Tallahassee on different subjects that I haven't had a lot of time to go out and do independent, in-depth research on stuff. But yeah, I am a conservative, and if you've tracked my voting record in any way, you know why I became the majority whip. When the speaker told me I was going to be whipped, he said, "Now you do know you lose some of your freedom when you do this." And I said, "I get it, I'm in the tank." He said, "No, you don't get it. You're not in the tank. You are the tank. You're the turret, you're the gun. And that's why I want you to be whip." And it's because I'm a conservative, and he knew he didn't have to worry about me on any of the legislation that they were proposing, major legislative initiatives.
Right. That's great.
And I also think he liked my joke about Charlie. And I have to apologize. I've told this to Charlie. He didn't find any humor in it, but I've been a friend of Charlie Crist for 35 years. And I was at his first ever fundraiser. He was a good attorney general. He was and he's a genuinely nice guy. But he developed a fairly severe medical condition his last year and a half, 2 years in office. And it was very unfortunate. He has a severe calcium deficiency. Right along here. And I apologize if that offends anybody. I mean, I like Charlie. He's a nice guy. I talked my way out of a hospital bed to vote for Senate Bill 6, the original teacher reform bill. I talked my way out of the hospital to be there to vote for that bill because my governor was going to sign it. And then he vetoed it. My wife, who was very angry at me, transferred all of that to Charlie. So in some respects, I guess it's a good thing. What else?
Who is your political and campaign advisor?
My political and campaign advisor generally is me. My political consultant who does my mail is Jack Latvala. The political consultant who will do my TV is probably Gregory Wilson, and a fellow named Reichelsdorfer in Tallahassee. They're all folks I have known for a long time, and I trust their technical ability. But I am a political science major. I read the books. I know what I believe. I know why I believe it. So as a political advisor, they may say you might want to go to this meeting, but they don't ever tell me to avoid subjects or don't speak freely because I'm not running for governor. I don't have to make friends with any of you. I just have to tell you where I am and what I believe. And I think that's what my last 40 years in South Pinellas County has been about. I've got a reputation for uncompromising integrity because I say what I believe and I mean what I say.
Okay. Tell us your feelings about the possible merger between Hart and PSTA. Are you up to speed on that topic?
Generally, there are some economies of scale that we can get out of the budget in terms of back office operations, purchasing power, things like that, that would be very positive in terms of keeping the budget down. In terms of promoting mass transit, 35 years ago, I argued with the St. Pete Times Reporter because they were talking about how you had to have low density to have quality of life. Now they're arguing you've got to have mass transit to have quality of life because they don't have any sense of philosophy, cohesive philosophy down there. You can't have low density and mass transit. It won't work. And if you spend 40 years campaigning for low density and then you start campaigning for mass transit, you've got your head in the sand or you need to go see a shrink. If we can consolidate and save money, that'll work. But this area is probably at best going to have bus service for mass transit. Rail service won't work here. You can't put it underground. Sand is not very good base to build a subway in. Not with the water table where we've got it. Light rail won't work because we don't have the density. Bus service is the only thing that works in certain populations. I've ridden it before when I had to have my car worked on. It got me pretty close to where I needed to be. If it had been August, I'd have been pretty hot when I got there, but it worked. But there is no future right now in the Bay Area for any rapid mass transit of any sort because we don't have the population densities.
Okay.
It's a fool's errand to try to do that.
Good. Would you sponsor new legislation eliminating county ad valorem, would you sponsor potential new legislation eliminating county ad valorem tax in favor of a new 1% transit sales tax that is being championed by Senator Lyle?
If it's a tax swap, I'll do it, and I'll tell you why. Because anything that lowers the ad valorem tax, I think, is positive, and tourists are going to pay 25 to 28% of it, because the tourists pay a big chunk of our sales tax. Now, I can get into a long dissertation about the flaws in the sales tax, but right now we're piling everything on ad valorem, and that discourages home ownership. And quite frankly, if we make home ownership affordable in terms of keeping our taxes low, I think that's a good thing.
So if it doubled the tax revenue and the excess was used for light rail, how would you feel about that?
That might be a problem because light rail will be a hole we push money into. I tell you what, though, might work. That might be viable if we immediately remove all development restrictions within 2 miles of the light rail. And I mean, remove any density limits, allow developers to come in and put density around it, put workplaces around it. By the time you got the light rail built, you'd have the density and the places to go. But you'd have to remove all building restrictions. You'd have to remove everything and let the free market rule it. If the free market ruled it and it worked, that'd be fine. But otherwise, it's going to be a hole you throw tax money down
If the free
forever.
market paid for it, it'd be fine.
And the free market's going to have to pay for it. Oh yeah, free market's got to pay for it.
No taxes.
Well, I don't think you'll never get to no taxes any more than you'll never get to no taxes for the roads you drive on.